Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, one of the Career Readiness Consultants with the Kent Intermediate School District. And I am delighted to welcome Maranda Cook. She is a host and content developer here in the Grand Rapids area, and she is going to be sharing her career path with us and some insights about her industry. Welcome, Maranda.
Hello, it's great to be here.
So I'm having a lot of fun already knowing that you're on the other side of the interview, so that's super fun for me. Let's take you back to high school days. You know, when you were a high school student, 15 or 16 or so, did you think you grew up to be a TV personality?
Absolutely not. So let's go back even a little farther. When I was about 10 years old, I had this little hobby that I would do. I would take all the groceries out of our cupboards and put them on the kitchen table. And then I would call all the kids in the neighborhood and be like, come on over. It's time to play The Price is Right. And guess who always got to be the game show host? Me. And I would give away my old toys if kids won. And I loved that. That's who I was. As I moved into high school, I really thought I was either going to be a professional ice skater, even though I couldn't skate at all, or I wanted to be an actress. And I did a lot of theater in high school. It seriously is what pulled me through, quite frankly. I'm a strong believer in the arts because I was not a great student. My struggles were very real. I'm dyslexic, and so I can't read and comprehend. But I always say for every disability, you have an ability. And I happen to have a bit of a photographic memory. So you can put something in front of me and I'm not going to read it word for word to you, but I am going to tell you what that says. And I'm going to repeat it back to you in a more interesting way than I ever could read it. Isn't it interesting what I do for a living? So, you know, the moral of the story is there I was in high school, not sure what to do with my life. So I had a theater teacher in 10th grade. She was my English teacher and my theater teacher. And she saw something in me and she called it out. And she said, you know, Maranda, you have something special. And I remember I would get teased for my voice a lot in school because my voice is low. I sound like a man. People weren't sure what was going on. And so I had decided I wouldn't speak. And this particular teacher was like, no, your voice is going to be an asset to you someday. And I remember thinking, you're crazy because I hate my voice. And she kept pushing. I started doing some theater. I sort of found who I was. I found a group of students who were weirder and wilder than I was. And I was like, I'm home. So let's take a look at some of those pictures. This is my high school graduation picture. I'll show you that and we can flip through a few of them. It's pretty scary. But here I am, this kid in the 80s. Well, it was the 80s. And I had a big mullet poodle
Sorry, it's taking me a second there. There we go. Just a second.
Let's see if we can find, if we can't find it.
No, we got it. Let me start with the mullet one.
There's the mullet. All right. So I was wearing a mullet before it was TikTok famous. And, you know, like we would perm it and I would have my hair cut like that. And man, I thought I was something special. And I did a lot of theater, like I said, and you can see I've got a shot here of me and a guy, we'll come to right there. Me and this guy, we did these funny little skits where it was called Doris and Henry, and we kind of ad-libbed the whole thing. It was almost like improv theater, and it was fun. We would travel around and do that, and I loved it. Through theater, I actually got a couple of scholarship options, including one to the Hope College Summer Theater, and then Hope College. And so I thought for sure this is what I was going to do and just be an actress. So went to Hope College did summer theater, worked with some of the finest stage actors and actresses around. I went to Hope College for 2 years. After my second year, I ended up talking to a professor and I was like, I just feel like there's more to this life. And I don't fit into whatever model you have. And this professor was fabulous. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go to England and study Shakespearean theater with the Royal Shakespearean Theater. And he laughed wildly. And he's like, if you can figure that out, I'll sign the paperwork. Well, this was before the internet. So I'm literally looking through things called phone books. I'm sitting in the library trying to find a school that has an international program that I can withdraw from Hope and just attend as an international student. Well, the University of New Hampshire offered that kind of program. They were the only ones around. And as a sophomore in college, I told my parents, I'm hitting the road. I want to go to England and I want to study Shakespeare. Miraculously, I got accepted into the program. I have no idea how. I was there with kids from around the country, around the globe. And the way they do it in England is I would sit in my own little dorm room, and I would know the day I had to go in and perform for my professors. So I would go into their chambers or their offices, and I would perform a scene from Lady Macbeth. And then they would be like, okay, now give us the Tempest, now give us, and they would just constantly, and I'd have to be on all the time and know all my scripts and be able to present those monologues. We spent a lot of time in museums. We spent a lot of time with the Royal Shakespearean Theatre, kind of studying and learning. And I will never forget, I got a call from friends who were at the University of London Polytech. And they called and they said, for the weekend, do you think you could come to London, and we're going to do a TV commercial and we want you to be in it. And I remember distinctly saying to them, I will never do TV because I don't want a second take. And that's what theater, if you've done any theater yourself, you know, to stand on that stage, to do it one take, to know it's do or die, and you've got to live the moment. That's what I loved. I went to University of London. I did this little video with my friends, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much fun when I can have like 20 takes and we could be very creative. And I decided maybe I would try TV. So where do you go when you run out of money? You go home. I ran out of money living in England. I came back home. I came back to Hope College. I met with the same guy who signed my paperwork to study abroad. And I'm like, can you let me back in? And can I just get a degree? And he's like, what do you want a degree in? And I'm like, I want a degree in communicative arts. He's like, okay, write the degree, show me the credit hours you have for it, and we'll see what we can do. I wrote the degree, I did an independent study, and I graduated from Hope College in 2.5 years. Well, it was about 3 years. I was on campus for 2 years. I promised him I would never tell anyone how I got the degree, but I'm telling you today. And it's really about discovering what you want, believing in it, and convincing people that you're going to go for it and you're going to work harder than anybody else. And that's what I ended up doing.
What I love about that, and what you've demonstrated a little bit in your story already, Maranda, is that you weren't fitting into anyone's cookie cutter, that you were making your own path by what was of interest. When you decided about this Shakespearean theater, you're the one that did the research. You're the one that found it. You're the one that got this professor to sign off. That sometimes on our journeys, it's not that we have to wait for. It's if you want it, you have to take action steps. I even love when we go back to high school that you were dyslexic and you didn't let that be a barrier to what you want to do, that you used the gift you had of photographic memory and like flipped it, right? And you're like, instead of saying, I can't do anything where I have to do a lot of reading, it's like, no, I'm going to use what I have and improvise or do what you had to do. So as young people, you hear this, you know, if you have something that's what you consider a weakness, flip it, right? And how can you use that as your asset? So I just love that part of your story already. But yeah, so you go back to Hope College, you get this degree that you helped kind of invent, communicative arts. And obviously you had some mentors along the way. This particular professor, but I want to just talk about that teacher for a minute back in high school, that one who called out your gift set, you know, really spoke into you about that voice being an asset. What do you want to help young people know about identifying a mentor or seeking that out? Because I think that's such a key piece of this. What would you like to share as far as your own experiences?
So if I will tell you two things. First, one of the things you mentioned, I truly believe let your pain be your purpose. Whatever you are living that is your unique thing that keeps you up at night, that often you're embarrassed about or afraid of, embrace it. That's part of who you are. And that actually is one of your strongest assets. So if you have some learning disabilities, I can tell you it is painful. I know you're called a lot of things. Teachers think you're crazy, stupid. Your parents don't get it. You don't even understand it. Figure out how it works. That particular teacher told me if I started using a red pen and underlining from left to right, I could train my eyes and my brain to start reading left to right. It helped me. It didn't solve my problem by any means, but it was a tiny bit of a solution. And at that point, I realized no one was ever going to call me stupid because I didn't read the way they read. I just read different. So that's how I roll. And it's very difficult. I often get into it at Wood TV8 with a lot of people because they'll say, can you fill in for this particular show? All you have to do is read the teleprompter. Well, guess what I'm scared to death of? I'm scared to death of a teleprompter, which is a screen that has moving words. And all of the people who anchor our news and our lifestyle shows, they just sit and read the script. And I'm like, do you know what you're asking me to do? I can't do it. And people don't understand that. So I've had to have a lot of conversations with my boss and pretty much say, if I had one arm and I had no feeling in my other hand, you would not ask me to drive the satellite truck down the East Beltline. So now you're asking me to do something I am not equipped to do. But if you want to give me that script and you want to send me into the field, I'll tell that story better than anybody else can tell it. So you've just got to figure out, how do you use it? You don't give up. You don't say, yeah, I can't do studio work. You say, no, I don't need the studio. I'm not good in the studio, but I'm great in the field and I'll prove it. Yeah. That's just that mindset of what you have to tell yourself, because it's so important. I got my first job in kids radio when I graduated. I had traveled the world. I had worked in Chicago. I had had all these fabulous opportunities, but I ended up having to come back to Grand Rapids because, again, I ran out of money. And I remember my mom cut this ad out of the newspaper for an AM radio station morning DJ. And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? I have studied Shakespeare. I have worked at WLS in Chicago. And really, I'm going to work at an AM radio station? Never think you're too good for any job. I ended up taking that job because I needed a job. I did the morning shift. I had terrible hours. They paid me nothing, but it's where the Miranda brand was born, because it was a children's radio station. And so I realized there was a huge gap in media where people weren't talking to kids with respect. And so we did a show every day where we straight up just said, you know, we're here for you. We are part of your family. We love you. And I love this. This was one of the first big media things that they did. The newspaper, the Grand Rapids Press at the time, had a special section. And they kind of put my picture out there and they were like, who is this woman who's changing the way we're doing children's programming locally? And I got to share my story. I think I was 22 in that photo. I was aggressive. I just kept pushing for it. And I did kids radio, but I did it very differently. I didn't just play Alvin and the Chipmunks and Mr. T, although we did that. But I spent a lot of time just talking to kids. At that time, Challenger blew up, which, if you remember, that was the first time a teacher was sent into outer space. We had wheeled carts, AV carts, into classrooms across America, and kids sat and watched a shuttle blow up with a teacher on it. And they came home from school and they were freaked out. And their parents were working. We were the only ones around, and kids started calling our station and crying and wanting to just talk about how could this happen. And man, we were right in there. And I don't have a psychology degree, so I had no idea, but I was listening. I was listening and I was talking. And I'm like, you know what? I think this is what I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life. And here I am.
And there you are. You're like the female Mrs. Rogers, right? Connecting with
that
kids.
Is quite an honor. I don't know if I can live up to that.
Well, just giving kids a listening ear and a voice, those are pretty great qualities that I hear you talking about. Was part of your brand back then the big earrings? Because that's what I remember.
Absolutely. So I will tell you, and you know what this is like as you're all over Instagram and TikTok, the people who succeed have that thing, whatever that memorable thing is, whether it's a saying they say every time, a way they dress, the style, their vibe. And somehow I landed on these big earrings, and it's so weird, but I would theme my earrings for our show. So if we were doing a water safety show, I would go to a boating store and buy the biggest floatable keychains I could find. And then my husband would turn those keychains into earrings. And I'd come out with these massive sunshine earrings, and people would be like, what are those things? And I'm like, none of your business, but aren't they great? I literally have probably 3,000 earrings from that early part of my career. And it's funny because I don't wear big earrings anymore, but if you tell your parents that you talked to Miranda today and they're from West Michigan, they'll be like, I remember her crazy earrings. It was something people talked about. So I would wear cookies on my ears. If it was a baking show, we would go buy like Chips Ahoy and we'd shellac them and put hoops in them. And I'd wear big old cookies, anything we could to just be fun and extreme.
Well, I think that's what maybe young people aren't aware, because, you know, they weren't watching you then. But when you talk about creating your brand, that's what is happening on TikTok, like you said, and that was your thing. So what would you like to give students any insights about just the industry and what does set people apart to even get to that place? Like, what do you think the secret sauce was for you to even get that role?
I think it's authenticity. Just be you. We have enough fakes. We have enough people posing, and that's not who you are. So who are you? And I mean, everybody has the most powerful tool around, and it's this. And your cell phone is a connector that if you can create something that is compelling, that is interesting, that shares your voice or your generation's voice, you will succeed. And I don't care if you are going into business, if you're going into accounting, if you're going into healthcare, people are going to look you up the minute your resume hits their desk. And it will be, who are they on LinkedIn? Who are they on social media? And what you're portraying on social media needs to reflect who you truly are, because that's what will land you the job. And if I'm looking at your resume and I'm checking you out on LinkedIn and you look one way, and then we do a Zoom call interview and you're something completely different, I'm not interested. I don't need that. I need people who are open, ready to communicate, share their pain, share their personality, show me who you are. That's what we love.
That's great. I'm sure there's going to be students watching this who have kind of a natural interest in TV or, you know, being a producer, something in that field. Why don't you give us a little example of what your typical day is like? And as you finish that, what other kind of roles are behind, you know, around you? Help them understand a little more about your industry.
So the best thing about my job is I have no typical day. So I can plan everything. And when I get into work, everything changes. So for instance, today I started in Muskegon at a rescue mission, donating a freezer in honor of a guy who's provided ice cream for 30 years at my park parties. I'm up there crying with his wife. I've got the rescue mission who provides shelter for women and children. They're thrilled. They've got this new freezer. And then one of the providers, Country Fresh ice cream appears, and they present a giant check to this organization. And it's just like magic. And we do a live shot. So that's a 6-minute live shot. And we do this live shot. I get to share their story. Then I'm in the car driving to my next appointment. I'm sitting with corporate America negotiating deals because I sell all my own stuff. And I'm sitting with them trying to convince them they need to support the good work I'm doing. Then I go into a meeting to talk with a group of people about what I want to do for an event called Beautiful You, where we empower middle school people to just love themselves for who they are. So we're talking about creating this virtual journal where kids can write down their anxieties and their stresses and their hopes and their dreams and try to guide them through that. So every day is different for me, but I get my energy from people. So I'm fortunate. I work with creative people and my job is to inspire them to be their best. So I have a shooter editor that I go out with. He's 23 years old. This is his first real job, but the kid is so talented. So I make sure wherever I go, I say, Spencer's one of the best kids we've ever had. And he's the youngest and he's just got an eye for video. And every time he'll walk out and he'll be like, Miranda, I'm not that special. And I'm like, Spencer, you are special because you get it. You understand it. You pick up on it. You treat people respectfully and you do beautiful work. So I do surround myself with people. Some are super creative, but they get the job done. And that's what you need too.
Do you have the shooter editor you go out with every day? Who else is part of your team that makes your job?
We'll do a shooter editor, and then I have a producer. And that producer, so I will, if this event is scheduled, or if I'm going to come to your school, I'll talk to your teacher, we'll set it up, and then I hand it off to my producer and she works out all the details. What time do we have to be there? What door do we go in? Do we have permission slips? Do we have parking passes? She sets the whole thing up. Who am I talking to and what are we talking about? All that goes into a digital calendar that we all keep. The producer also is responsible for writing all of our web stories and posting every day, because I do a daily segment. That segment gets posted online. She makes sure all that happens. Once all that's set up, I'm on social media probably 4 hours a day, which is sickening. But, I know I have to post on Facebook at least 4 times a day. I've got to be on Instagram at least once or twice a day with my post and then be doing stories and reels. I've got to repost stories on LinkedIn and tag all my corporate partners. It's just a part of the game. So when you talk about drawbacks of the career, this is not a 9-to-5 job. I wake up at 6 a.m. and my first post has to be ready to go. So start at 6 and I'll end at 7:30 or 8. If I have to work a weekend, I don't care. I'll work a weekend because I love my job. And so the moral of the story is when you stop loving it, get out, because you're not doing anybody a favor. If you're grouchy, if you're not into it, if you're barely getting by, find something you love. I want to leave you with this little quote, and I know we're not done yet, but I want you to write this one down. Pursuit without passion is trivial. So if you're pursuing something because you think you're going to make a lot of money, or you want to be, YouTube famous, or whatever your thing is, and you're going for it for all the wrong reasons, it means nothing. You won't succeed, or you might succeed, but you're not going to be happy. But if you're pursuing something that you are deeply passionate about, go for it, because you're going to be amazing. So I'll meet a lot of kids who will be like, well, I want to do X, but I know I'm not going to make a lot of money, or my dad says that's not what I should do because he does this. I'm saying go for what brings you joy and what makes you happy, because then you're going to light the world on fire. And we need more people who are passionate about something that we can change things.
Yeah, I think that's really important advice, because it is your life. And so young people, listen to the adults around you, ask them what they see as special about you, get that input. But when push comes to shove, just like Maranda, when she made the choice to go to Shakespearean theater, I'm sure her parents were like, oh yeah, that's a great choice. Let's send you off, right? They weren't, you had to do a sales pitch on them. But to take that advice from Maranda, and you have to do what you love, pursuit without passion is trivial. I absolutely love that. I want to ask you a question, because this was new information for me. Your brand of Maranda, you have to book your own stuff. Tell me a little more about that side of it, because I would have assumed you were an employee of Wood TV8 and all your paycheck comes from them and they help manage all that. But it sounds like you're an entrepreneur.
I am so fortunate. I think I'm the only one in local media who has no contract. I never have. So when I worked at Fox 17 and now I'm at Wood. And my deal is I walk in, I bring all my own partners, which means corporate America funds the work I do. So Meyer, Fifth Third Bank, West Michigan Whitecaps, Craig's Cruisers. I have 25 corporate partners who put their money where their mouth is, who empower me to do good. So I bring that revenue into Wood TV8, but that means I have to manage all my own sales accounts. So I'm doing the stuff I'm not good at, which is, it slows me down. But I also am a control freak, and I want to make sure everything I promised is over delivered. So I muddle my way through all the accounting side of things and making sure Wood does all the billing and all of that. But I got to keep all my numbers straight and know the deals I'm cutting and tell that to the people at Wood who do it for me. I sit at the office. I am an employee of Wood TV8, but I kind of have this great relationship with them where I run my own business. So my business is Maranda. I don't get brought into some things, and I get sad about that, where I'm like, shouldn't I be on Angel Tree? But then I remember, no, I got my own gig going. I do my own donations of toys and things to kids who need them, and it's okay. So you always have trade-offs in your career. If you want to be in the boardroom for every meeting, then know that's what you're going to do for a living. You're going to be in boardrooms and meetings every day. But if you want to be out there making change happen, you got to give up a little bit of the information you gain by sitting in the boardroom so you can be out running around.
I love that. That's fascinating to hear. That's how your business model is. If a student's thinking, this is what I want to do, what are you recommending for next steps? Is there a particular college degree? Should they make up their own to get communication arts at college? What are things they could be doing in high school to kind of build some skill sets and maybe some that transition to education?
So right now we are looking for digital content providers. We are looking for people who can create compelling content, cool things people want to watch, whether I'm going to watch it on Instagram or whether I'm going to watch it on the 6 o'clock news. I need people who can think about storytelling, who can give me a great beginning, a juicy middle, and a great ending in a minute 30. I need people who can write. Our industry needs people who know how to tell stories in a way that we can post it and get 5 million hits. And I can tell you, as high school students, you are light years ahead of a lot of kids who graduated college 10 years ago, because you know how to use this device in ways they have no idea. So if I have you coming in and you are looking for a college internship, which you definitely need, you need an internship in our industry, and you tell me you want to be on TV, you've got an idea for a show, blah, 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 and I look you up on social media and I see nothing that shows me you want to create content, forget it. But if I look at your stuff and I say, oh my gosh, every week this girl goes vintage antiquing and finds these really cool things, and she does these little segments and shows me how to wear pants from 1969 and look cool today. I love it. I can't wait to get in on that. So make sure you have a good social media, good digital presence. If you want to get into the business, start creating right now. Nothing's holding you back.
Yeah. And you mentioned you have to have an internship. So that means pretty much you have to go to college. Is that what the employers are expecting?
At this point, and we probably will not be that way forever, but most people who come to Wood TV8, you have to have a college degree. We really don't care if your degree is in communications, if it's in journalism, if it's in broadcasting, creative writing. It doesn't matter to me. Hospitality. If you can come in and bring in skills, the soft skills, I'll teach you everything else. We can teach you how to shoot and edit. We can teach you how to put together a great event. What I can't teach you is how to show up on time, how to care, how to be respectful, how to think outside the box and challenge other people. Those are those skills that people are going to have to succeed and to win.
Yeah. We hear that from employers a lot, Maranda. You know, it's that work ethic that they really are desiring. I'm just curious. We only have about 2 minutes left, and I'm going to have you a chance to finalize it with a word of wisdom. But how did your I think it was Spencer was his name. How did, at such a young age, 23, how did you find him? Like, how was he able to showcase his skill sets that someone at your level was able to hire him?
So we have people put together reels. And so I was looking at his stuff, and I was looking at it all on a social media platform. And then I looked at his social media, and he knows how to produce these really catchy little ditties that are things that, like, I really want to do, but I don't know how. So I knew he could teach me. I met the kid, super likable, not aggressive, just fun to be around. And I'm like, we spend a lot of time together. We're out on shoots all the time. And I got to have somebody who's flexible, no drama, ready to work, and who's creative. And he had all of that. He had just graduated Michigan State, and people were like, you're taking a chance. And I'm like, isn't it exciting? So, you know, I know he might stay with me a year, 2 years. And if he can move on, it makes me so happy. I'm so proud.
Well, that's thrilling that he gets to work with you at such a young age and build his experience with such a great veteran in the industry. I have a great website I'm going to show folks that could do some of the hardcore research around being a producer and, you know, journalism even and communications. Why don't you finish out your time with us, Maranda, with that final word of wisdom? You've given so much. Let pain be your purpose. I wrote that one down. But what else would you like to say as we finish up?
I would just like to encourage you all to don't give up. Don't feel like you have nothing to bring to the table. You have a voice. You see things differently than anybody else in the world. So figure out how you're going to use your gift. And you might not get it right for 10 years. It's okay. But what kills me is when I see kids with talent sitting on the sidelines waiting for the action to come to them. And sometimes you have to make the action happen. And people are going to say you're crazy, you're going to fail. And you know what? You might be crazy and you might fail, but you may hit it just right and find something you absolutely love. So I can't wait to see the stories you all are going to tell and to be a part of your journey. Thank you so much.
Gold stuff, Maranda, just gold. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me.